Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, welcome back to Brew Crew Review Podcast. With me today is Vince and Scott. How are you guys doing?
Great. Doing well, Craig. How are you?
I'm doing good. The baseball box scores are back. Spring training has started, and hopefully the baseball season can get a full year, and that'd be great.
Yep, absolutely. It's so exciting that we're just seeing baseball again in spring training, and after last year, I'm so glad that we got a partial season at least. But it's going to be really good to go back to a full season and kind of get some of our routines back that we were missing last summer.
Yeah, I feel pretty fortunate. I really thought that this was going to be another year where we only had like 60 or 80 or 100 games. So it's really great that at least so far looks like we're going to be able to get full 162. That's pretty awesome.
All right, so on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about a couple things, including some spring training battles that are going on for starting positions for the Milwaukee Brewers. But before we do that, we're going to do our annual tradition of listing off our top 30 future Brewers. We had our minor league analyst, Brendan, of course, put together his top 30 list here, which I've got in front of me, or we've got in front of us here. We'll go through that. And, of course, things are a little different. Last year, there were no minor leagues at all. There were some of the minor leaguers got to play at alternative training sites, some competitive ball. But beyond that, the sad state of affairs of the pandemic really left it no minor league baseball in 2020. So one might ask how these guys moved up or down the list based off really no stats to go on. Well, one thing, there was a 2020 MLB draft, and the Brewers, of 5 rounds, the Brewers did draft 5 players, and actually all 5 of them made this list of 30. So it did kind of restock the system a little bit. So anyway, without further ado, we'll kind of go over the names starting from 30 down to our top prospect. So we'll start, and instead of saying what minor league affiliate they played at last year, we're just going to go with their current age.
Their favorite color.
Yeah, we don't. We'll get to that. All right, so our 30th prospect is outfielder Joe Gray Jr., who's 20 years old. 29th prospect is shortstop David Hamilton, who's 23. The next is Max Lazar. He's 21, right-handed pitcher. 27, left-handed pitcher Clayton Andrews, who's 24. 26, catcher / first baseman Thomas Dillard, 23 years old.
Hey, is he related to our friend of the show, Tim Dillard?
No, actually he's not, unless they're some kind of distant cousins I'm not aware of, but they are both from the South, but different states.
Okay.
So 25, catcher Nick Kali, he's 22. 24, catcher Jefferson Cuero, he's 18, an international draft signee. 23, we've got outfielder Micah Bello, he's 20. Number 22 on the list, we've got outfielder Carlos Rodriguez. He's also 20 years old. Next up, we've got our 5th round pick from last year's draft, outfielder Joey Weimer. He's 21, drafted out of college. All right, our 20th overall prospect, we've got catcher Peyton Henry. He's 23. 19th on our list, we've got catcher Xavier Warren, who's 21. He was a 4th round pick out of college last year as well. 18, we've got right-handed pitcher Alec Bettinger. Next up, we've got right-handed pitcher Dylan Feild, who's 24. 16 is shortstop Eduardo Garcia, who's just 18. Next up, outfielder Luis Medina, who's a 17-year-old international signee of last year. Right-handed pitcher Phil Bickford, he's 25. 13th on the list, we've got outfielder Corey Ray, who's 26 now. Also, these last 3 guys are kind of on the cusp of losing prospect status, so to speak. And 12th on the list is right-hander pitcher Zac Brown, who's also 26. On the cusp of
Hey Craig, let's pause for a second here. that brings up a really interesting question, and I wanted to talk about it with you two and Chad if he's on. But what is the age cutoff that you guys see that a guy has sort of lost prospect status? It's not always about necessarily getting opportunities in the big leagues, but at some point a guy hits a certain age, and it's like time to put up or shut up, so to speak. And I think that Corey Ray is at that point. I think I should just point that out.
Yeah, definitely right in the 25 to 26-year-old range. And unfortunately,
yeah, right away. But if you haven't hit the big leagues yet at 27, I'm not saying it's too late. There are guys that have appeared later and had great careers. That's definitely true. But when we're looking at these prospect lists, I think that they're, because a guy like Corey Ray, say he never makes an appearance in Milwaukee this year, can he still be on this list next year? I mean, what are we using as our kind of criteria?
Well, technically he could, but I mean, just that he'd have to have under 130 major league at bats or 50 innings pitched to be technically as prospect according to Major League Baseball and be qualified for Rookie of the Year and all that. But with that being said, yeah, age is definitely a factor, and unfortunately, with the lost 2020 minor league season and the whole season of development, so to speak, it could jeopardize whether or not these guys become major leaguers or just completely flame out. And it's an unfortunate situation for these type of players. So I think this would be a huge year for them to make something of themselves. So yeah, those last three players, Bickford, Ray, and Brown, are definitely on the cusp of that. They're all within 25, 26 years old. So, all right, number 11 on the list is shortstop Hayden Cantrell, is 22. He was our third round pick last year. Number 10, outfielder Tristan Lutz, 22. Next up is left-handed pitcher Antony Kelly. He's 21. Eighth is shortstop Freddie Zamora, second-round pick from last year out of University of Miami, Ryan Braun's old school. He's 22. 7 on list, right-handed pitcher Drew Rasmussen, who did get some innings in at the major league level last year. He's 25. Number 6, catcher Mario Feliciano. He's 22. Left-handed pitcher Aaron Ashby, who's a nephew of former MLB pitcher Andy Ashby. He's 22. Shortstop Bryce Trang from number 4. He's also 22. And then here we go with our top 3. We've got Ethan Small, left-handed pitcher, our number 1 pick from a couple of years back, who's 23. And second on the list, we've got outfielder Garrett Mitchell, who's 22, and our first-round pick from last year out of UCLA. And my number 1 and Brandon's pick for number 1 on the list is an 18-year-old international signee from a couple of years ago, and that is outfielder Edbert Perez. Now, he's got a silent H and a silent T to begin and end his first name, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, Edbert Perez. A lot of people are claiming that he's got 30 potential.
Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Greg. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I was interested in our pre-production notes to see that he is the son of former Brewers outfielder Robert Perez, who played for a number of teams. I think most dominantly the Blue Jays, but had a brief appearance with the Brewers back, I think, in like 2001 or 2. We could have our interns look that up. But
it was the first year of Miller Park, 2001. He had 5 at-bats.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think he was hitless in 5 at-bats, but he's officially a Brewer, so I'm sure you've got his autograph somewhere, right, Vince?
He's actually on the list of guys I still need. I'm down to needing like only 100 or so guys out of the 900 that have played for the team, and he's one of them. So kind of hoping that, with this kid playing at Miller Park, we're going to see him in person, and I can, snag a signature from him one of these days.
Absolutely, opportunity there. And it might be a couple more years before he makes it the bigs, but some are saying that he's so advanced that he could make it up to the big leagues by the time he's 20, which would be in 2 years. Most likely in 3 years, I'd say by the time he's 21, he'd be one of our starting outfielders, hopefully, if things all go as planned. But he really hasn't even, gotten very much experience at the state level yet. But he was at the alternative site last year, and people are saying he was hitting opposite field home runs, and his bat speed was incredible, and they really project him to be like again, it's tough to say for the 18-year-old, but that he has, like 80-ish average with 30-30 potential. So, again, most other top prospect list for the 2021 Brewers have Garrett Mitchell or at the top of the list, our last year's first round pick. But Brandon and I discussed at length, and we really feel that based off upside alone, that Edward Perez really is our number one prospect. And Garrett Mitchell, I think, was kind of a steal for the Brewers. We got him number 20th overall in the draft last year. He was really projected to be a top 10 pick. But there are some questions about his ultimate hit tool, and I in particular don't like betting on guys that have questionable hit tools. He does have a great, phenomenal, center field defense, and he's got plenty of speed. So hopefully, he has significant upside as well. But those two guys, I think, stand head and shoulders above the rest of this class. Just focusing on the top five, I really feel that those are kind of for sure future major leaguers. Unfortunately, the rest of the list from 6 to 30, I think there's obviously some guys that are going to make it, but like I said, it's tough to see hardly any of them on the list contributing this season. There really just aren't guys besides guys like Corey Ray that could, get a shot, but most likely as a fourth or fifth outfielder. And there'd have to be pretty massive injuries for Zac Brown to get any innings as a starter this year. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Or if the Birds are completely out of contention come September, if there are expanded rosters. But really, if I were to pinpoint any guys that might contribute this year, I'd have to say Phil Bickford could. He's turned into a bullpen potential arm. Corey Ray, like I said, is a fourth, fifth outfielder. Zac Brown is a potential, back of the rotation starter. And just to throw out a couple other guys on the list, Dylan Feild and Alec Benninger also are to the point where I think they're almost fully developed and they could contribute out of the bullpen, possibly both right-handed pitchers. But other than that, a lot of these guys are still a couple of years away at least. And so unlike last year where the Brewers actually had the NL Rookie of the Year and Devin Williams, believe it or not, and also named, I believe, the reliever of the year in all of baseball. It's pretty awesome. It's hard for me to see anyone coming from this list and making an impact for the 2021 season.
That's interesting. I think we should point out too, only two guys from that list made appearances last year with the Brewers. And that was just Rasmussen and Bickford. And I think Bickford just had one game in the big leagues before he was sent back to the alternate training site. So not many of these guys are really tested yet at the highest levels. And it's really hard, I think, in, this year's version of this analysis because, normally we can look at stats from AAA or AA from the year before and kind of see how guys developed. But there weren't any stats that were kept for these guys that were at the alternate training site last year. And I know we talked about it on podcasts previously, but these guys all lost a year of, development against competition with other organizations. So it's really hard to kind of look at this list and see where guys might be developmentally. And for the guys that didn't go to the alternate training camp, it's really tough. And I kind of wonder how a lot of these guys spent their summers last year and what they did to stay sharp.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people were, obviously a lot of people were tweeting out about like different, kind of independent workout programs and things that they had, or they would get together with a few other teammates and work out still. But, obviously it was extremely difficult, rough circumstances for them. And you just kind of feel bad because those people like really need that kind of time to develop. And when you take a year away from somebody, that's an eternity for a prospect. So hopefully they'll be able to, kind of bounce back though and make the most of it.
Well, and not only that, but if they've been drafted and on a minor league team, really, if you think about that, baseball's been completely kind of consuming their entire life, probably since they've been about 14 or 15 years old, I'm guessing, for a lot of these guys. And then to just all of a sudden have that abruptly stop and you stop playing any form of competitive baseball for like an entire year, I think it's going to have some long-term effects on some of these players, unfortunately. But with that being said, I am hopeful that they'll be able to play a full season in the minor leagues in 2021. So hopefully everyone kind of gets back on track. Were there any other kind of names that you guys pique your interest as far as helping out within the next year or two? or guys that you really feel that are going to emerge from this list to possibly be on top of it next year?
Well, very, very, very small sample size, but Aaron Ashby looked really good in his first spring outing this year. So, that's not really indicative of any abilities necessarily to get guys out at the big league level during the actual major league season. But that's always a good sign. And he's kind of got that sweeping left-handed delivery. And I could see him with his plus velocity being a guy that could fit in potentially to the Brewers bullpen at some point sooner rather than later. So he's one guy that's kind of piqued my interest a little bit. I think Rasmussen did fine last year in the big leagues. I like him a lot. I think that he's going to continue to contribute at the big league level as well. And, the last guy I'll bring up, right now is that, I still think that Corey Ray is a guy, he's kind of an enigma to me. He's had good years. He's had really bad years. He's had injuries. He was a number 1 draft pick. It's like we really, I think, just need to find out what we have in Corey Ray. And unfortunately, I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen in Milwaukee at this point because, number 1, he is kind of getting out of that prospect status. Number 2, it seems like the Brewers are bringing in a lot of, other guys to compete for those backup outfielder spots, both in the organization, guys like Tyrone Taylor and also from outside the organization. I know that the Brewers have brought in a couple of outfielders like McKinney and Derek Fisher and, other guys that can compete for that 4th or 5th outfield spot. So, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see Corey Ray really in Milwaukee over any prolonged period of time. I would suspect we're going to see him in Milwaukee at some point this year, but maybe it'll be down the road if rosters expand. And but I also said that last year too. I thought that because he was at the alternate training sites and the rosters were as big as they were, I thought that, if the Brewers had any confidence in him, I thought that we'd see him, make an appearance at least, but that never happened. And I lied. I'll bring up one more guy. It should be pointed out that Dylan Feild did have an injury that occurred, apparently, that our colleague Tom Wondercourt never really addressed, but it happened in early February. He had surgery, and it just came out yesterday that he's going to miss, I think, is it 3 months of the year? Scott, you can have your interns double check on that, but I think it's 3 months of the season. So bad news for number 17 on your list, Dylan Feild.
Yeah, that'd probably be down a little bit on this list, that's for sure. Scott, did you have any thoughts?
I guess I was just really thinking of, like you said, people that were, could potentially come up and make any kind of an impact this year. And I don't know. I think maybe a little bit of shine came off the prospect apple of Zac Brown, but like to see what he could potentially do. And then Ethan Small. I mean, I know maybe we've been a little better at it recently in our franchise, but this is a franchise that notoriously cannot develop starting pitching. And so to be able to potentially, do that, I'd like to see what we can do with him. So hope it works out.
And one other thing too that is interesting, guys, is that, we had a really, I think, bad season last year from Omar Narvaez, and he's still locked in for a couple of years if we want him at the big league level, and we've still got Manny Pena, obviously. But, there's a number of catchers on this list. I wonder if, because guys like Jacob Nottingham, I think his prospect status is kind of worn off a little bit. I just wonder if maybe some of these catchers that are on this list might get a chance to compete sooner rather than later. David, since our last taping, I think even David Freitas was let go, and he was allowed to sign with the team, I think in Taiwan or Korea, and he's no longer, one of the names that's ahead of some of these guys. So I do wonder if maybe some of our catchers on this list might get a chance sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like a guy, his name's Peyton. Henry's a little bit further down the list. I think I'd have him at number 20, but the guy that I think has potential for a future major leaguer is Mario Feliciano, and he's 22, so he'll probably be at AAA this year at some point, but I don't know if we'd see him this year in the big leagues unless it's a September call-up or something. But yeah, you guys make a good point. Some of the guys like Ethan Small, people compare his delivery to Clayton Kershaw's, and even though he has a low 90s fastball, there's some deception in his delivery that makes it play up into the high, as if it's in a high 90s fastball. So he's got a lot of strikeout potential. Aaron Ashby, like you pointed out, Vince, he's got one of the best curveballs in the minor leagues from what scouts say. So I think that's kind of exciting. I really think that rather than target him for the bullpen, except for maybe when he breaks into the big leagues, I think he's a future starter for sure. And I almost envision him have like a number 3 starter ceiling. And like you said, Drew Rasmussen pitched with us well last year, and he really has a great arm. He pumps into the high 90s, and he's already 25. I don't know. I almost thought maybe the Brewers might tinker with putting him back in the back at AAA and maybe let him start. Just because I don't know beyond, obviously I think we have some starting pitching issues still for the future of the franchise. So I wouldn't, but I don't know. I think that he did such a good job in relief that they'll probably leave him there. Yeah, and like you said about Zac Brown and Corey Ray, I think that they will see some big league innings this year. And, Avisel Garcia is only signed through the end of this year. So if Corey Ray does have a breakout at AAA once again, I think he's still an option for the Brewers for next year as a starting player. But like you said, Vince, it's very likely at this point that he may need a change of scenery to really have his career still be salvaged, I guess, at this point. So we shall see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Phil Bickford, like I said before, he got into one big league game. It was his big league debut in 2020. A guy who had a real high ceiling when we acquired him a few years ago from the Giants, along with Andrew Susac. He had some off the field issues, I think, that led to him being suspended for a year and missing some time. But he seems to be back. He's still got some decent raw talent, and again, it's hard to know where they're at developmentally when we haven't seen them play in a year. But he's a guy that if he does put it all together and kind of is able to manage some of his off the field stuff, it seems like he could be a guy that the Brewers continue to look at. And I would guess in a bullpen role, but a live arm is a good thing. So we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, but I mean, it's exciting just to see the minor leagues being played again. I know that our show has been a huge advocate of the minor leagues ever since the beginning of our show, which is, believe it or not, will be started about 17 years ago as of this July. It's hard to believe, but yeah. So it's exciting. Hopefully we can make some minor league games ourselves this year, and that people around the country can, safely watch some competitive baseball once again this summer. It'll be great. So with that being said, as we already mentioned, spring training is underway now. The Brewers have played a couple of games. I think they won their first 2 games. Some of their offense is looking pretty good so far. With that being said, we should talk a little bit about position battles. What are the?
Oh, Craig. Actually, before we hop into that, I was just going to ask you, like last year, most people would say that the Brewers farm system, as far as like prospect wise, was probably in the bottom 3 in the league. Some had us dead last even. Where do you think, with our recent drafting anyway and development of players, where do you think we are roughly now?
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we probably moved up a few notches from the bottom 3, but not too many. So I would say we're in the bottom 3rd, unfortunately, of farm systems as of right now. And I'll just put it that way without giving an exact number. I would say in the bottom 3rd of the farm systems in the league, but it's pointing up, I guess. So that's good.
Guys, one guy that we haven't talked about that I think we should at least mention in a little bit more detail is Bryce Taran. Craig, I know that he's on this list from your intern, but what do you guys think that Bryce Taran has shown in his few years in the organization since being drafted in the first round back in I think it was 2017, 2018. What do you guys think that the ceiling is at this point on Taran?
I think he can still be an everyday player, but not an all-star level player. Just obviously he's kind of known for his defense and his plate discipline, but he really doesn't have much pop or a terrible amount of speed. But, with a full slate of at-bats at a major level, I could see him having like a 15-15 season with like 15 homers, 15 steals, and hit anywhere, between 260 and 300 with a good on-base percentage. But with that being said, he profiles as, possibly a second baseman as well as shortstop. So I think he's definitely an up-the-middle player. And now with the signing of Colton Wong and Keston Hira being moved to first, perhaps when Wong's contract is over. I think Hira could be ready to take over second base, or if Urias to completely bombs as our future shortstop, Taran would be there as a possibility. So I think that we'll definitely have a need in one position or the other up the middle. So I'm still hopeful that he'll be an everyday Milwaukee Brewer player, and I don't think it would kill him to be a AAA for another year or possibly two before we're ready to bring him up to the big leagues. But I don't foresee him making the big leagues this year yet. But
Yeah, no, fair enough. I know he's in camp, and he made a pinch running appearance, I think, today. And, I'm glad that the Brewers are including some of these guys in big league camp, as a lot of other organizations do. So, no, I just wanted to get your thoughts on him before we moved on here.
But, I mean, if you want to throw out an old player comp to him, I would say like a young Billy Spires, as far as Brewer fans, if they are old enough to know that. But kind of reminds me of him a little bit.
Of course, man. He's a football coach at Clemson now. Jeez, of course, everybody knows Bill Spires.
Yeah.
How would you compare him to one of our recent, I was going to say recent interviews, but recent, I guess, Brewer prospects that came up and had some success anyway in Scooter Gennett.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting comp because Gennett didn't have much power, but, he ended up being a guy who could get on base a ton and hit incredibly well after he got to the Reds. It's an interesting comp, Scotty.
Yeah.
Well, what I do like, though, is obviously what kind of did Scooter in a little bit here was that he didn't have that kind of positional versatility that Stearns covets, and that, obviously we're getting with Bryce Ring as well. So being able to work multiple positions out of the infield is definitely helpful.
Yeah, it's an interesting comp. Like I said, Gennett eventually, found his way to just be a second baseman. I could see that being like Taran as well. But I think Taran has a little bit more athleticism, I guess, and a little, believe it or not, I actually think Gennett had more power but less speed than Taran may have. But I don't know if that's helpful or not. But
Yeah.
But I think Taran does have better plate discipline for sure, which I think is a key that the Brewers have been focusing on their drafting, and much of Major League Baseball really has since the analytics have really come into the game and scouting and whatnot. So I think that gives them an advantage and a little bit higher of a floor, so to speak, where I really do feel he'll be in the Major League in some level, and if not even like a super utility infielder, so to speak, at some point. But yeah, no, I mean, still hopeful for him, but it's nothing to get. I guess he's not the type of player to get super excited about, because I just don't feel like he'll be like an all-star player or anything like that. But any prospect that becomes an MLB regular is definitely have made it, a great player, so to speak. So.
Yeah, and that's a hit when you're drafting them. Like, obviously, like if you can even get that.
Yeah, and we're not even there yet with him. But I really feel like he's on the right track. And again, it's hard to say with that. Keep mentioning, but like with the lost season of last year, it's just he's gonna have, it's just 2021 is gonna be so important for a lot of these guys to kind of just get back on track. I mean, they got a year older, but they didn't get another year of experience, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and the arrow's pointing up on the positivity. Getting back on the field is a key. So. All right, so getting back to position battles for the Milwaukee Brewers, I like those first couple games of spring training because they do let some of the prospects, and like you said, Andy Ashby, I think, struck out three batters, and the one inning of work he had, and I know a small pitched a clean inning in the first spring training game too. But I always like that they give kind of the prospects a few more extra at bats and innings pitched those first couple games of spring training, which is kind of cool. But overall, what position battles are intriguing you guys the most, I guess, this year, and who are you looking to kind of emerge from some of those?
I mean, to me, it all comes down to a position we've talked a lot about on our show this offseason. And Scott, I know you missed quite a bit of our offseason, but we talked a lot about third base. And, I still don't know what the plan really is. I guess if it is Travis Shaw, it's Travis Shaw. But I think that he still has a lot to prove, quite frankly. He did not have that great of a year last year with Toronto and had a very bad year in Milwaukee in 2019. And, so I don't know. I thought that Urias and Shaw battle, so to speak, at third base is interesting to me. seems like the team is very committed now to Hira at first. So I don't know how many other battles are really out there. I guess for our fourth and fifth outfielder, there seems to be 3 or 4 guys in the mix for those 2 spots. So I guess the third base and the outfield are kind of what I'm looking at this point.
Scott, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, the outfield is going to be, I guess, well, I don't want to say fairly set, but we're pretty set on the guys we're going to have out there, I think. Just depends on when they're going to play or how much they're going to play. But, I mean, other than that, I don't really know. I mean, I am a little bit concerned with the first base situation. I don't really know what the backup plan is if Hira can't play first, because Hira's bat needs to play, and Colton Long is going to play second for the most part. So I don't know where that leaves Hira, I guess. I'm sure he's going to get the at-bats, but what happens if we have just a train wreck situation at first? What are we going to do? I mean, that's the part I'm worried about. That's not really a camp battle per se, because, I mean, maybe it's going to be something where Hira's just never going to play first in any close game after, like, the 7th inning or something like that. And, we still obviously have Vogelbach.
Yeah, I was going to say, to your point, Scott, it's not like we have a great defensive option on the bench with Vogelbach. I mean, Vogelbach also was brought in for his offense and probably, in the hopes that there would be a DH in the National League this year like there was in 2020. And, to your point, I just don't know who defensively could step in at first at this point.
Vogelbach does have some experience with the Mariners playing first base, not well, but in emergency pitch.
Well, sure.
I'm
just saying he's not a defensive guy,
I mean, if he stays on the roster, he's going to have to play there because there's no DH. So I think Shaw obviously is an emergency backup at first. And even Christian Yelich, believe it or not, came up as a first baseman when he was in high school. So I think he can play there. Not that we'd want to do that. But when there were some whispers this week of Jackie Bradley Jr. possibly signing with the Brewers, I was like, are they actually considering putting Yelich at first? I'm like, where are we going to put Keston Hiura? This is ridiculous. So Scott's point, I think, is really fair that if the Keston Hiura to first base experiment fails, there's no other spot to put him back in the lineup. I mean, you're going to have to put him back at second base, and then what do you do with Colton Wong, who you just signed for 2 years? I mean, it's a huge risk, I think, that they're taking, and I think that they must have seen enough somewhere along the line to know that Hiura is going to be able to handle first, or else they wouldn't have done that signing. So I guess I'm not overly concerned. We really need Hiura's bat in the lineup no matter what. So I think he's going to sink or swim at first base, and there's really no other place to put him. I don't think that I entertain the fact of putting him back at second, obviously.
No, I tend to agree. And so 2 things I think are going on. Number one, my guess is that the Brewers asked Keston Hiura to start working on first base drills and things that he could do even during the off season, like earlier on. Like I don't think that him coming to spring training is the first time he picked up a first baseman's mitt, because my guess is that, again, David Stearns loves versatility, and I think that he probably had told him it could be something that he might have to start working on. And so we don't know how long he's really been doing that, but, I would think that maybe he's been doing it since longer than just this week at spring training. And number 2, I think that the Brewers are hoping to mitigate some of the defensive problems at first base by having such a strong up the middle defense by signing a guy like Colton Wong, who is a great defender, and Orlando Arcia is a great defender at shortstop, and Lorenzo Cain is a great defender in center field. So you do mitigate some of those problems and some of the range issues that a guy like Hiura might have at first base by having such good defense elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that, I guess I would say that maybe the Brewers, in an effort to develop, I guess, bats that would play better in those positions, I think it's more of an issue where maybe the Brewers have neglected some of that defense, especially up the middle. And so, I mean, to me anyway, there's a lot of places where you can kind of hide a bad glove, but you really need great defense at center and obviously short and to a lesser extent second. But I mean, after that, it's getting easier and easier to kind of hide a bad glove, I guess. But Those are the places where you really need some great, talented defensive players. And the Brewers haven't always had that, and it's nice to see them putting more of an emphasis on it.
Well, here's what I want to point out. You guys concerned about first base and outfield, and obviously third. I'm concerned about the entire left side of the infield, to be quite honest. And here's what people I think are kind of making a false assumption on, that Orlando Arcia is for sure our shortstop, and that Travis Shaw has a potential to have everyday at-bats at third. I think that neither of those things may be true. I actually feel that just over a year ago, in November of 2019, a few months before the pandemic, whatnot, the Brewers traded Trent Grisham and Zach Davies just to really land Luis Urias. And I think they did that. Obviously, we got Eric Lauer in that deal too, but I think they did that really targeting him as our shortstop of the future. And I think had there not been a pandemic last year, that we wouldn't have even re-signed Arcia, and Urias would have been handed the shortstop job. And I think that's going to possibly what's going to happen anyway. I really think that the Brewers envision him as their shortstop, and he is good with the glove, just as good as Arcia, in my opinion. And I think that he's going to be better with the bat, and I think that they're going to pencil him in at short for the most part. And that's why there's already rumors that to increase his versatility, they're already putting Orlando Arcia with some reps at third and even in center field, believe it or not. So I think that they're envisioning Orlando Arcia as a bench bat going into 2021, believe it or not. So what does that leave for third base? That leaves Shaw, Daniel Robertson, who might be the dark horse in this situation, and Arcia, who has no experience playing third as of yet. So my guess is that, possibly 2 months or into the season, we may see something like Urias at shortstop and Robertson as our starting third baseman. But that's just me, I guess.
Interesting, Craig.
Yeah, possible.
No, go ahead, Scotty. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's definitely possible, although I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if Robertson, if he wound up getting like a soft push in the third or something like that. But other than that, I mean, it's definitely plausible. I don't think that Arcia has done enough to be a major league starter anymore. I mean, and at this point, he definitely still has some potential, but I think that the Brewers are worried that maybe they've already unlocked most of it and that he's not going to develop any further at this point. And if that's the case, then, we have to upgrade that position, unfortunately. And, I think that's absolutely right. That's why we made the trade for Urias.
But guys, that takes out one factor of this, equation, and that's that I think that you guys are spot on when it comes to the reasons why we made the trade with the Padres originally to get Urias and Yardley and Lauer. But I also think that Arcia had the best offensive year of any Brewer last year. I don't think we can completely discount his showing on the field in 2020. I think he had 268 or something, but so not great, but still better than most of the others in our lineup. And the thing with that is, again, a short season, small sample size, all that stuff. But maybe he proved something to Craig Counsell and others last year by playing fairly well. And
I think that's why they re-signed him. But maybe arbitration eligible, that they had the option to just not tender him a contract. And I think that's why they did that, is because he did have a nice season last year in a short sample, but he did finally have a nice season with the bats, and I think that was huge. And I think that's going to prolong his career by quite a bit, even if it's not with the Brewers beyond this year. But I think the difference between the two players is that they really feel that Urias can hit closer to 300, and he has on-base skills, which is something that Orlando Arcia just does not. And before acquiring or signing Colton Wong, I think that they actually envision Urias with his on-base skills toward the top of the two spots in the order and ahead of Christian Yelich and Huron. And now with Wong signing, it's not necessary this year to put him up there. But with that being said, I don't know. That's just my guess on how this is going to play out, I guess. I think the Shaw signing is definitely a good depth move, especially hitting left-handed, when the other three guys in this equation are all right-handed hitters. I will point out that I read shortly before our podcast, I read there was assessment on this left side of the infield situation by the Brewers, but written by Fangraphs, and this is how they summed it up. The Brewers are just, and I'm quoting here, the Brewers are just throwing poo against the wall and seeing what sticks. So from a team with playoff aspirations, I don't think that other people around baseball are envisioning that this is a great setup on the left side of our infield, but it is what it is, and I'm hoping some guys can emerge.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. What do y'all think about the outfield situation? So I know that we're set pretty much with our starters, but I do think that we've got a battle going on for backup outfielders at this point.
Tyrone Taylor, McKinney, and Derek Fisher. I think two of those three guys will make the team. I'm going to say like Taylor's almost a shoo-in for some reason, I feel, just because of what he's shown already as a Brewer. And the other two guys I think are kind of battling for that fifth spot, if indeed we carry a fifth outfielder, because if Orlando Arcia shows he can play center field, we may choose to not carry a fifth outfielder. But
right, that's true.
But yeah, I don't know who. If I had to pick, I would. It's tough, but I would almost go with Fisher and Taylor, to be quite honest. Nothing against McKinney, but yeah, we'll see how that plays out as well. Scott, do you have any favorites in that horse race?
I don't know. To me, it's kind of a little bit of a toss-up. But as far as our regulars go, I'm actually wondering, this is going to be a contract year now for Abisail Garcia, who really, really underwhelmed last year. And he came into camp, I forget how many pounds he lost, but he lost a bunch of weight.
30.
He seems kind of dedicated. 30 pounds, you said?
Yeah, I think I read 30 pounds. I think, I don't know if I read that somewhere, or if that was from our anonymous source, Thomas Carter.
Huh. Well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
well, I guess I'm interested to see. Now this is a contract year for him, and he was came in, obviously, like, we paid him very well to perform here, and he has not. Now he's on this contract year. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. I'm glad to see that he's at least showed up at the camp in shape, but kind of wish I would have saw that last year. But I know last year was a weird year, so really hoping that he's a bounce back candidate, I guess, and is able to be a regular here. But if he hits like he did last year, he's going to get, like, a percentage of his at bats are going to be, he's going to have to, unfortunately, sit on the bench eventually, because we can't have a whole year of what he did last year.
Yeah, I think you're right. With a contract year, it somehow is a motivating factor for guys to get in shape and have a nice year. So I think the Brewers will benefit from that. And I don't see him being a Milwaukee Brewer beyond this year, even if he has some kind of smash breakout or something. I'm not envisioning that, but I think he'll have a solid year this year. I think Ryan Braun would have done just as well, even at his advanced age and whatever, with that starting spot. But again, his health was always a concern, and that is one thing that Garcia's got on his side. He's still, in his upper 20s, and he's got health on his side. So, and still some potential in the bat. So, I think he kind of is what he is, but I think he'll have a pretty solid year and a little bit of a bounce back. So, real quick on the rotation, guys, just like the one spring training rumor that's going out there is that the Brewers are stretching out for Freddie Peralta, for whatever that means. And I guess, what's your guys' take on that?
I'm all for it. I've said that before on this podcast, but I really like Peralta as a starter. I think that he's got the arm for it. I think that, as he's advanced in his own education as a pitcher, he's developed a better repertoire, and I'd really like to see him as a starter. I think that he could really solidify our starting rotation. I know he can be fine in the bullpen. I'm not, certainly he can adjust to that role again if need be, but a guy with his type of arm, I just think he's best suited in the rotation, and I'd love to see him get the chance this year.
Yeah, I guess I just don't know. Sometimes, like, obviously he took the mound and he was just lights out from the start. other times he struggled, in that first inning, just kind of, getting comfortable out there. And so it makes me wonder, like, if they're stretching him out, is it to start, or is it going to be somebody where, like, they're going to kind of piggyback him, or he's going to be like the long man or something? I'm not sure, because I know obviously when they did extend him, they saw a lot in him, and the Brewers had so few people under contract that to extend anyone was kind of a really big sign that, that they really saw something in this guy. And, he's shown it. So I'm not sure where that leads him this year, but I hope he winds up starting or potentially getting those better, like, more high leverage innings in our bullpen. Now our bullpen is so good that high leverage innings for him, the best he might see is like the 7th, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all works out. I hope he doesn't get in that, like, well, if a pitcher's struggling, we're just going to throw him in the 3rd inning, and then hopefully we can get like 4 innings out of him or something like that. Like, cause I don't know. There's just not a lot of glory in any of those kind of roles. Like, you're just a mop-up man, and I think he's better than that.
Yeah, good point, Scott. One thing to keep in mind for this year, I think that's going to be such an odd year coming back from the COVID year, so to speak. And then a lot of guys that a normal year would have thrown, upwards of 150 innings as a starting pitcher in a normal rotation. No one did that last year. And so it's going to be tough. You're not going to be able to throw guys 200 innings, even your number 1 or 2 starters. So I think having a great bullpen like the Brewers do, and not only that, with some depth in the starting rotation, even if it's not quality depth, I guess I'll call it, is still going to be very valuable. And, if I envision how the Brewers might be trying to work this, and not saying that we're going to go to a 6-man rotation, I think we'll stick with a 5-man, but I'm just going to guess that we're going to have, Woody be our number 1, Burns be our number 2, probably Brett Anderson be kind of a number 3 that we expect to get 5 or 6 innings solidly every time he's out there. And then for our 4th and 5th spots, I really think that we're just going to go with some kind of combination of Lindblom, Hauser, Lauer, and Peralta. And so that's 4 guys for the last 2 spots, and then also kind of covers for Brett Anderson has an injury history, and even, Corbin Burns a little bit. And so I think just that depth is going to be helpful. And I think they're going to expect all those guys to kind of throw innings, a decent amount of innings. And I think so. My guess on this stretching off Ray Peralta is just that they're entering him into that kind of mix of players, whether or not they be having been an opener who goes, like you said, Scott, for 3 or 4 innings. But then once he's 2 times through the lineup, then you pull him for the next guy in, the next man up, so to speak. So I have a feeling they're going to tinker around similar to what the, Tampa Rays do, unfortunately, with their entire rotation. I think they're going to do that with their 4th and 5th spots, but this is just pure speculation on my point. TC also, our anonymous source, mentioned that he agrees with me, but which is very rare.
Who?
Tom Carter.
Oh yeah, Tom.
We just wanted to say, I'd just stay with T. Carter, maybe, or some variant thereof.
What if we called him Thomas Carter? Do you think that would cloak?
Well, that's
Carter
his name.
Well, right, but everyone knows him as Tom Carter. Like, maybe we should say, "Oh, Thomas Carter," and then no one would know who we're talking about.
Well, I think they might be able to, follow the breadcrumbs, figure it out.
Just a thought.
Maybe we should call Thomas Jefferson and then or something instead.
Since the Brewers aren't
or Todd Lincoln.
Since the Brewers aren't printing out a media guide this year, no one would know that, he works for the Brewers anyways. So it's fine.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
In the media without getting our guide, but we'll have to figure it out. All right. Anyway, for the season, awesome. I love that first day of spring training where I get to look at box scores throughout baseball, especially the Brewers box score, and see that Christian Hira hit a 3-run bomb. That gets me pretty excited. So
yeah, same here.
I mean, we have an awesome top of the rotation. We have the best bullpen in baseball, in my opinion, and we have a really good outfield. The rest I'm not going to comment on. But anyway, I really feel that we'll be a competitive team this year. And I really do feel that we're at least in the top 2 or 3 teams in the NL Central, which should make us competitors throughout the year. And I'm definitely excited for the season.
Yeah, it's gonna be great just to have baseball back. Honestly, it was such a weird year last year, and playing 60 games again was better than nothing. But it was really tough, to try to feel the same way, I guess, about the season last year as a normal year where you've got the full 162 games, and I think that we're going to see fans at Miller Park American Family Field on opening day this year. Even will be a percentage capacity, but we're already seeing fans at spring training. And not to put the cart before the horse, but we're seeing better numbers on COVID. We're seeing more people get vaccinated. So I think that as the season moves on, we're going to hopefully return to some sense of normalcy. And again, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be having full crowds at Miller Park at some point in 2021. And even before that, just being able to go to a game at some point, I think is going to be really exciting. So I'm really excited to see some Major League Baseball. I really missed it last year in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty exciting. I mean, just getting back to normal, hopefully a little bit. I mean, at this point, like if people walk around in masks all the time, obviously, and my dog barks at a mall, like she doesn't understand what's going on anymore. Like she's like, why is everybody? I don't know. She thinks everyone's bad now. So it'd be nice to actually, get back to normal a little bit. Oh, it'd be so great to go to a game.
Absolutely. So I feel like the entire world will be classy once again this year. So they were classy. We told them to stay classy, but last year, not so classy with this pandemic. So, but anyway.
No, that's true. Hey guys, really quick before we end our show here, I had one more tidbit from the Brewers history department. We are just seeing an announcement today from the team, again, not reported by our colleague Tom Hodgecourt, but we picked up on it, that the Brewers are going to be inducting 3 more former Brewers into the team's Wall of Honor, including pitcher Francisco Rodriguez, Giovanni Giardo. Scott, you had a great interview with him back when he was in Nashville, and now all of a sudden he's getting his plaque up on the side of the stadium. And third guy is Carlos Gomez, who the Brewers also announced will at some point this year be signing a 1-day contract with the Brewers so that he can officially retire as a member of the Brewers, as he expressed a desire to do. So just wanted to congratulate those 3 guys and point that out as well.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And by the way, I have always like reaffirmed to the Brewers organization that despite our long tenure there between the 3 of us, working with that organization as well as like our show, we do not need any accolades whatsoever. So we will not be ever put, into anything like that, at least in our lifetimes. They might do it like posthumously or something, but we made it really clear that we're all about doing this for the fans. So we don't need.
Didn't you get your name on that wall outside the stadium, Scott?
I did not actually. No, I didn't. I know there are some of my office coworkers that did, but
I did. It was great, but they spelled my name wrong. Yeah,
unbelievable. Well, I mean, maybe my name is up there then, because maybe it's just spelled really, really wrong.
That's what I'm gonna go with.
I'll be like,
I think your name is spelled GARYBROWN. I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
The late great Gary Brown got his name up there.
I don't know. I don't know if he did or not.
Sure.
I actually really did. I don't know how. I have no idea.
It's because Val put them all in. Mine's up there too.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure where it came from. I think I had worked at the Brewers at that point. I was a college kid. I'd worked at the Brewers at that point for like maybe 3 weeks, and then I had my name on a wall outside the stadium. It was awesome. I felt like really my career was going somewhere with the Brewers at that point, but that was sort of the highlight.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was really a low floor, low ceiling prospect with the Brewers, so.
Scott, you might have been on one of
within the Brewers ticket office.
You probably were on one of your patented hiatuses when she was handing out the cards to fill out for that.
Yeah, she wasn't sure you were ever going to see it.
It's entirely possible.
All right. Well, let's look forward to awesome 2021 at Feild or whatever the heck they're calling it these days. And yeah, it would be great to all get together and go out to a game there. That'd be awesome. So hopefully Scott makes his way back to Milwaukee, and same thing with Vince. And yeah, it should be an awesome season. So stay classy.
No, we'll definitely try to get up there. In fact, Craig, we don't know if we're going to be able to get tickets for opening day, but maybe sometime that first opening week, I'd be interested in going. I don't know if they're going to require vaccines at that point or not, but depending on a lot of different circumstances, I'd love to get up there at some point sooner rather than later when the season starts. So.
Yeah, I guess down in Texas, you're probably not missing snow at this point, but I'm saying there's probably gonna be some snow on the ground in April still.
It's been 80 since all the storms down here, but yeah, it's kind of a fluke storm within the last few weeks. But yeah, excited to get up to Wisconsin, excited to get back to the stadium, and excited to do normal things again like tailgates and see you guys. And Scott, I know you'll probably have a house up there by opening day, so it'll be great. We can crash there. It'll be awesome.
Your summer home or something, that'd be great. Yeah. All right, so ready to wrap this thing up then. So stay classy, Chad Collins, and go Brewers.
Yeah, thanks Chad, thanks Vikram, thanks to all the interns as well, and thanks guys. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll definitely come back at you very soon with a 2021 season preview where we analyze the divisions and make our 2021 season predictions, which is exciting to think about. And don't forget to check us out online. Our Twitter address, Brew Crew Review 1. Our email address, which I know, Scott, you're checking all the time where your interns are, Brew Crew Review podcasts with an S at gmail.com. Or you can also contact us on the Facebook page that, Scott, I know that you maintain.
No, I don't maintain our Facebook page. Don't even look at our Facebook. Just send us something on Twitter or the email or, Twitter's probably the best.
All right, guys. Stay classy. Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Brewers.